Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of the Greener Tech podcast. Today we have one I've been looking forward to for quite some time. I'm joined by the UK and Europe General Manager of a company called Zoomo. Today, Lisa Conibear will be giving us a real overview of micromobility over the last 12, 18 and 24 months to really see what differences it's made in our everyday lives. Most people have really taken it for granted, whether that's on delivery of food, groceries, fashion and apparel, or if it's even mobility and getting around busy city centres. So good afternoon, Lisa. How are you?
Hey, Charles. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. I've also been really excited to be here and excited to talk about this.
Yeah, massively. It's really great to have you here. And especially because although most people may have not have seen or heard of Zoomo, they're doing great things and obviously started halfway around the world and have now found themselves doing amazing things in the UK, spread across Europe in busy city centres and cities in general. So in your view, Lisa, what changes have you seen? Obviously, we've noticed massive social changes in people's habits due to COVID, but in terms of the world of micromobility, what differences have you seen firsthand?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question, and something that really attracted me to Zoomo in the first place when I joined. When you think about micromobility, or when the average person thinks about micromobility, they think about shared bikes or shared scooters, or maybe like individually owned scooters or bikes. And while those are extremely relevant, growing sectors and hugely exciting, they're really only a part of the picture. And Zoomo really looks at the other part of the picture, and one that is often ignored, but as you say, used by many individuals, perhaps without even knowing it. And so one of the areas that we focus on is how goods are moved around cities, and in particular, small goods that you can fit into a rucksack or a small box, currently on the back of an e-bike. And so if you go back about a year and a half ago, and you think about how many goods were being moved around on the back of e-bikes in cities, it's significantly smaller than it is today. One of the initial changes, or if you think about couriers and bikes, you think about perhaps New York City, and New York City being the birthplace of couriers and bikes. Maybe you've heard about these famous alley cat races that happen there. And then in the past few years, you've seen really an uptick in hot food being delivered to people's houses on the back of bikes. So that could be from an Uber Eats or a Deliveroo. And that's where one of our co-founders was from. He was a general manager of Deliveroo at ANZ. And he really saw this opportunity when he was there. He saw Deliveroo trying to ensure that the food gets delivered to the customers in time when it's still really hot and really fresh, and that the riders have a safe and affordable experience. And he saw a gap in the market for that perfect bike or vehicle, so to speak, for that courier to use. And so that's what they started the company on, thinking about how do you create that bike? How do you make it affordable? How do you ensure that it's maintained so that it's safe for the rider, and targeting like a Deliveroo or an Uber Eats rider. In the past year or 18 months, we've seen the kind of deliveries that are going to people's houses really, really change. Right, we've seen the addition of exciting new verticals. So quick commerce, I'm sure all of your listeners are all over it, as is everybody else. But quick commerce and these business models with these dark stores spread across city centers has enabled people to have a lot more things delivered to home on the back of an e-bike. So now when we think about e-bikes or micromobility in cities, it makes a lot more sense to really recognize that sector, which is people moving goods such as groceries, pharmaceuticals, beauty products, things that you might want to buy from the high street, as well as your hot food.
Nice. And leading up to that then, so since the last 18 months, like you said, things have been massively adopted on a global scale, although maybe most people might think of New York, and I think I've been there once before, and definitely a pair of shoes in your feet would probably get you faster and further than a pair of a set of tires on the road. But what do you think were the main inhibitors then in terms of stopping micromobility really picking up before that? Would it be essentially cost, or could it be in some respect speed?
I think in some respects speed, but it seems a silly thing to say, but in order to have the conditions in place where the bicycle does make more sense than any other vehicle for delivery, you have to think differently about how you're going to organize your business, organize your operations, and serve your customer. I mean, before Amazon came out with the 2-day Prime, everybody was really willing to accept, I'm going to order something and it's going to take 2, 3, 4 weeks. I'm from Canada. It takes us maybe a month for that package to arrive. Overnight, Amazon introduced 2-day Prime, and suddenly everybody wants 2-day Prime. Like the whole expectation about packages being delivered changes from one day to the other. And I think that's really what happened when we had that quick commerce vertical come in, is people started realizing, actually, I can expect more. I can expect to have things in 15, 20, 7 minutes delivered to my house. And when you think about how do you enable the operations behind doing that, now we know people want it. Investors, companies think this is really going to be a profitable segment. It's how do you enable it? And one of the only ways really to enable it is through an electric bike. And I don't think it's a push to say that the quick commerce boom doesn't happen without the electric bike. They're partners in making this happen. You need to, in quick commerce, you need to have control of your goods, right? Which is why we had that dark store model. You need to have more control over your workforce, which is why we see that move away from gig economy workers and that really nice move towards employing riders. And then you need to have more control over the bikes. The companies need to ensure they're safe, that they're maintained, that they're functioning, that they're quick enough. And so you see a move towards these companies hiring fleets of bikes. So if you kind of asked me what the barrier was to enabling that, I think it just took some companies thinking different, thinking, hey, actually, Amazon was really cool with their 2 days, but we can push that even further and we can deliver something for our customers that they're going to value more.
Yeah, so it cuts down that whole slide from click to delivery. Micromobility, transport within that sector can really change things. And you touched on there that the founders of Zoomo really came from that large corporate background then, and obviously seen a gap in the market. And I think with anything, no matter what you're doing, if you're a carpenter or a plumber, you still need the right tools for the job. And Zoomo then, in a nutshell, is an electric bike. But I say it so easily, but it's probably much more than that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really nice question for you to ask me. I appreciate you asking me that one. It is much more than that. I mean, you go out to our customers and you visit them, and you visit the riders that they have employed there, and they maybe have 1 or 2 different models of bike. And the customers will see you're from Zoomo, and they'll come over and they'll be like, oh my goodness, your bike is the one I want. I come early for my shift because I want to get a Zoomo bike. I don't want to use the other ones. I feel safer. I feel faster. I feel more comfortable. I feel better at the end of the day. And so to make a tool, and it's the same as if you talk to a professional chef and you give them a knife set that you've bought in the supermarket versus a proper knife set, which is spec'd for a chef. I mean, they're obviously going to have a similar opinion of which one they like more. But yeah, no, our bikes are built for couriers. We've been working at building that perfect bike for a courier for 4 years now. And that's everything from when the pedal assist turns on, what kind of tires that we use, the IoT, making sure the bike is basically theft proof. So we don't have to worry as much about thefts, and the riders don't have to worry in the same way about thefts, to just making them really secure and comfortable. That riding position is really comfortable for when you have a heavy load on your back. There's a rear rack you can put your groceries on if you want to put those on. So kind of everything we thought about with them in mind.
Yeah, and no compromises then by the sounds of it with cost, efficiency, and safety. It's taken the best out of all 3 angles there and mangled them and molded them into something which has come out as the Zoomo utility bike. And with that, you touched on working with quite a number of couriers as well. What solution is it that makes the Zoomo bike so attractive?
So, I mean, it depends. We've got two different business models. We've got our B2B, which is where we provide fleets to our customers. We maintain those bikes. We provide them data to help them improve their operations, like what's breaking, at which sites do you have more breakages, which sites are performing really well, what are the parts that breaking. We then help them to educate their riders on the back of those breaks, really, so that they can fast track their path to profitability. We also use inventory management systems so that as they go from maybe 10 bikes, which they can manage on a spreadsheet, to like 500 bikes, they need help to know where those are at any point in time. So that's what our B2B customers really like. And it's also a rider retention tool for them. They know that if they have Zoomos, riders are more happy to work with them. For our B2C customers, it's a little bit different. And these are individuals that maybe have chosen not to be employed by one of the quick commerce companies for whatever reason, or often they're employed by them and they work on their own for like Just Eat, Deliveroo, Uber Eats at the weekend. For them, often they don't have the means to go out and purchase their own bike. It's just prohibitively expensive. And that's where I think what we do is so exciting, because for me, that customer segment, which often are new people that have recently moved to the UK and are looking for work that they're able to do from day one or from the get-go. Being a food delivery rider is often an entry point into the workforce for them, but they don't have a bike, they don't have the means to purchase a bike, or if they do, it's a push bike, which really limits their earning ability. So what we're able to do is that we're able to give a very expensive asset, to be honest, on a rental basis to somebody without that same sort of level of credit check that you would need from other companies, really enabling this segment of society to have some of the coolest, fastest, best e-bike technology kind of on the road in cities in the UK, Europe, and the US today, and somebody that you wouldn't necessarily associate with having access to that sort of technology. And I think that's what they really appreciate. I don't know if you've seen like these documentaries about long-haul truck drivers. And because they spend, you haven't seen them, they spend all day long basically in their truck cabs. And so they decorate them all, right? They decorate them. It is their home. It is their tool. It's what they use for work. And food delivery riders are no different. Like that bike is what they spend, 8, 9, 10, 12 hours of the day with. And so having someone that they feel proud of is extremely important to them. And that's what we're able to provide.
Yeah, and it sounds like a model somewhat built on trust as well. And I think that's probably then the foundations for building strong relationships with both business to business, but also getting the consumer on side as well to say, this is us and this is what we do. Very much more so out of curiosity, in terms of numbers, and what you're seeing, are more people opting to go with, be employed by a business and then obviously using their bike? Do the numbers on purchases give you some sort of indication in what most people are doing at the moment?
Yeah, it's a good question. I just came back from Germany. I was there last week, and as much to like the chagrin of my fellow travelers, I tend to stop riders on the side of the road and engage in very long conversations when we're trying to go for dinner or do different things. And I was just trying to understand what's going on there. And I have to say, after that visit, it became very apparent to me that London food delivery riders are a different breed. They hustle so hard. It's absolutely incredible. Their work ethic is incredible. So often our B2C riders are co-employed. They do quick commerce deliveries during the week. And then in the evening, they may hop on their bike to a few hours of Uber Eats. They know when the peak times of Uber Eats and Deliveroo are, when they're going to get those bonuses, that additional cash that they're going to earn. And they jump on their personal Zoomo at those times, use that to earn that money, and then go to work and get on the Zoomo at whatever quick commerce company that they're working on. So there's crazy hustle. But we've also seen that the food delivery market has completely picked up due to the pandemic. So there's a lot of work in that space as well. Traditionally, the summer across the UK and Europe is really the slowest time for food delivery, right? Everyone's kind of willing to go out, go to restaurants, be in parks. And during winter is when that picks up. This summer, the lull hasn't occurred like it did in other years. And we're not really sure what to expect come the season when it enters into season, but I'm already getting calls from some of our partners, because we partner with Uber Eats and Deliveroo, just saying, by the way, we're really expecting big years this year, so expecting us to ramp up alongside.
Yeah, it seems like in some way big pressure on yourself to perform as well, to say, actually, yeah, we can provide these numbers. I've actually seen it firsthand, and yeah, peak of summer, you think people would be going out to restaurants. Obviously, there was one point where we couldn't, and I had a couple of friends and my housemate as well, and we decided, you know what, we'll get food in. It's easy, it's fast, and the difficulty was actually finding a rider. There wasn't enough riders. It was probably a Friday or Saturday night, so foolishly we probably picked peak time and peak day, but just trying to find a rider on the day and that time and that vicinity, it is just not enough. So it does sound like an industry which is absolutely booming, which I think leads on to my next question, which is, what does the future hold for Zoomo as a business? How is growth looking?
Yeah, I mean, it's a few great points you made there. I don't know if you can see out the window behind me, but it's raining right now. And so this summer has also, like, the weather, despite, like, okay, we had a bit of a heat wave last week, but the weather has also not been great, which has meant people are staying home. I was at one of my customer sites earlier this summer, about 2 months ago, and it was a Friday night, and we were just trying to help, like, build enough bikes and get the bikes out so that they had riders on the road. And of course, my team were there. I went to provide some moral support, and I was like, let me buy you all my team dinner. And of course, I bought my team dinner delivered by the customer that we were at, because I couldn't have someone else showing up to their customer site. And I went on, and it was like an hour and a half, until our dinner was going to be delivered. Yeah. And as a joke, I walked into the city manager's office and I said, it's an hour and a half for my dinner. Like, what's going on with your company? And she was like, build more bikes. Like, quicker. Just more bikes, because we can't meet the demands of what people are looking for. So for us, I mean, demand is good. Our biggest struggles are supply chain. I don't know if you've like watched what goes on in the news. Supply chain is just because of COVID, because of Brexit, because of the Suez Canal.
Yeah, we love to blame the Suez as well. Yeah, and then the cycling world is as a whole. I know for myself, a keen cyclist, and trying to get bits. I recently needed a new chain, and honestly, it was like trying to find a spare organ. It was a nightmare. I was calling around all these different bike shops to say, do you have this type of chain? And most of the case was a no. And yeah, I suppose that has a huge knock-on effect in just that whole logistics supply chain for yourselves as well.
Well, I mean, it really does. And as you said earlier, like, this business is a business of trust. I can't rent a bike to a courier or to a business. And we also service their bikes. We maintain them. We ensure that they're on the road at all times. And then we run out of parts. And then they come back to me and say, hey, my bike's had an accident, or this part's broken, or this happened, I need a new part. And I can't say I don't have that available for you, right? Because that completely breaks the trust. But on the other hand, we're kind of at that threshold where we're starting to get big enough that we can go direct to supplier and not through a third party for our parts and components. But it's so competitive these days to get access to those parts and components. Supply chains are so long, sea freight is so delayed, ports are congested, that sometimes you're in that situation where you're just stocked out of parts. And the amount of use these bikes get, you suddenly just get these piling up of bikes. And you have to think fast. You have to find alternative ways to get the parts. You have to, build up the morale of your team, of your mechanics who are under pressure. It's extremely complicated.
Yeah, and it sounds like the maintenance side of it is obviously a huge part of your B2C business model, and obviously B2B as well, because you're taking on that whole fleet maintenance side. So if I was a Zoomo rider, had a Zoomo bike, and I had an issue with it, am I coming to you guys directly? How does it work? How would you get me back on the road in the fastest means possible?
Yeah, you come to us directly. Generally, it's a same day repair. You show up to one of our sites. Our mechanics are there working. You hand it over to one of them, depending on the extent of the damage. Most often, I'd say 95% of the time, it's a same day repair. They give that same bike back to you, and you're back on the road.
Nice. And in terms of customer base for yourself, you mentioned some of the biggest, some of the most popular names, and probably on most people's phones from the App Store is Deliveroo and Uber Eats. So, out of those, they're very much fast food orientated. You mentioned that there's obviously a number of other verticals that are starting to tangle with micromobility as well. Some of which being fresh produce and fresh groceries. Are there any other businesses, customers that you're working with there?
So we work with most of the quick commerce companies. We're really lucky to have been able to kind of get the trust of a lot of them early on, and to start partnerships a few months ago and being able to scale with them as they grow. I think there's a picture of us in the New York Times. It's great for us because when our customers get press, often they're on the back of our bikes. So if you look in the New York Times today, one of our customers was featured, and you'll see a Zoomo bike. Last week, another one of our customers was featured when they were invested in. Again, it was a Zoomo bike that they were sat on. So we do a lot of that grocery delivery space. In the past 2 weeks, we've had 2 more inbounds that were really exciting for us. One was based on the pharmacy space, so quick commerce, but really focused on pharmacy. And another one is basically it's focused on anything you want from the high street delivered to you. So they're setting up dark warehouses, basically from like kind of that 10 shops that I guess you would typically find on any high streets, and delivering those items to you. So we're seeing more verticals kind of pop up, which is really exciting.
Yeah. And it sounds great that obviously it's a credit to yourself and the business as well that most of these are inbound customers that have probably heard great things, because I know the cycling community and likewise with the micromobility community is probably one where if somebody's doing well, their word of mouth travels fast. And with that, growth wise for yourself, so obviously in the space of 4 years, it sounds like you've as a company pretty much covered the globe. But where else have you got on the menu? Is there other parts of Europe? Is there other parts of even the UK on quite local shores that you're really looking to target, and areas where you'd like to see yourself blossom in?
Yes, I mean, I would like us to be everywhere. To be honest, I mean, the more goods, the more packages, the more people that you can move out of cars and out of trucks and heavy duty vehicles and onto light electric vehicles like bicycles, I think the better for everyone. We're starting to see, as you know, like these catastrophic events happening globally, these really bizarre weather patterns happening. I was mentioning to you just briefly a minute ago about how our warehouse was flooded in London just this week. And so for us, and I think globally, it's really time is of the essence. We need to move quickly. We need to think about every single way that we can to reduce our carbon emissions. And if we know anything about people, is that people will change habits if it's easy and convenient for them. And that's where like we get to this super nice nexus of like quick commerce being so easy, so convenient, and e-bikes. So moving people out of trucks, moving goods out of trucks. So for me, the more places that we can be, the bigger impact that we have. To be really specific, Europe is the next thing for us. So we want to be in at least 3 countries on the European continent by the end of this year. We're already active in 4 UK cities, and that's probably likely to stay steady until the end of this year. Maybe 5, maybe one more, but not too much.
Maybe the one more.
I'm really hoping that we launch in Canada selfishly this year. On the cards. I think it's on the cards, but I don't know the timeline for that. And then, of course, there's a lot of places around the world where 2-wheelers are already a massive thing. They're just internal stroke engine 2-wheelers. So Southeast Asia, for example, I think there's a massive opportunity to replace 2-wheelers, internal combustion engine motorbikes there with e-bikes that really work. So that would be very exciting for me.
Yeah, and I think that would probably work well because I've been there myself, and I think safety often comes as like a tertiary factor. And I think having something which is safe and reliable and has been proven around the world and around the globe would probably have a huge effect in terms of the quality of people's lives as well. And especially as I touch on again the business model that Zoomo provide, and having something which is which is trust-based, it's cost-effective, and it's affordable. They can obviously repay as they earn as well, and there's not many opportunities which a business would give someone who might often have nothing and is working towards something, and obviously gives them the tools in which to do so. And it's been an absolute pleasure. I know you've got plenty to get on with today, but it's been an absolute pleasure to hear, because myself, before actually speaking to yourself, I hadn't actually seen the Zoomo around as much as possible, and I think now it's a lot more obvious that they are everywhere. Like you said, they're in every single city as a B2C concept, and obviously as a B2B, it's one which is growing really fast and adopted by some of the biggest names in the world of e-commerce and fast delivery. And I think now more people will be aware, maybe even inclined to get in touch with yourself. You want to turn your phone off, put on airplane mode while you still can. And I think it'd be really good to see what happens with Zoomo in the future.
Yeah, and just a bit of a plug there, so thank you for that. If there's any of your listeners that are like, wow, that sounds like a really cool company, I'd like to work there, please come work with us. We have, I think, 80 jobs open at the minute globally, something mind-boggling. So tons of jobs. I'm on LinkedIn. Our founders are LinkedIn. My team here, they're all on LinkedIn. We will all happily accept inbounds of anyone that's interested in a role. Drop us a line, have a look. We're on Workable. So on Workable, just look for Zoomo, see what's available. We'd love to have anyone that's interested in that mission of electrification, moving out of cars and out of trucks, and also enabling this segment of society to have access to like the coolest and best e-bike tech. If you like any of those things, then please let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can vouch for that as well, because my initial message to Zoomo was actually via LinkedIn to Mina, one of the co-founders, and he happily accepted, facilitated the conversation, and passed me to the person who would be suited to help me best and have a conversation. So yeah, big shout out to the guys at Zoomo, and yeah, once again, Lisa, absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much.